Picture this. Over 300,000 years ago, a small group of early humans crouches around a flickering fire in what is now Europe. The flames cast dancing shadows on their faces as they work stone tools with practiced precision. But these aren't modern humans like us. These are Neanderthals, our closest extinct relatives, and they're not alone on this planet. In caves scattered across Africa, another species is emerging, Homo sapiens. The stage is set for one of the most remarkable chapters in human history, the time when multiple species of humans walked the earth together, interacted, competed, and ultimately changed the course of evolution forever. For most of human history, we believed we were alone, that our species had always been the sole inheritors of intelligence and culture on this planet. But the truth is far more extraordinary. During the Pleistocene epoch, our world was a bustling crossroads of human species, each adapted to different environments, each with their own survival strategies, and each leaving their mark on the genetic tapestry of modern humanity. This wasn't a world of primitive cave dwellers huddling in fear. It was a complex ecosystem of intelligent beings, master toolmakers, artists, and survivors who faced challenges that would test the limits of human ingenuity. The story begins in the vast savannas of Africa, approximately 2.5 million years ago, where the first members of the genus Homo emerged. Homo habilis, whose name literally means skillful man, marked the beginning of our lineage's remarkable journey. These early humans weren't just surviving, they were innovating. With brains roughly half the size of ours, they created the first stone tools, carefully chipping away at rocks to create sharp edges that could cut meat, crack bones, and shape wood. This was humanity's first technological revolution, and it set the stage for everything that would follow. But evolution never stands still. Around 1.9 million years ago, a new species emerged that would forever change the trajectory of human development: Homo erectus. These weren't just tool users, they were explorers. With their longer legs, more efficient walking gait, and larger brains, they became the first humans to leave Africa, spreading across vast distances to reach Asia and eventually Europe. Imagine the courage it must have taken for these early pioneers to venture into unknown territories, crossing rivers, climbing mountains, and adapting to climates they had never encountered before. As Homo erectus populations spread across the globe, something fascinating began to happen. Separated by thousands of miles and different environmental pressures, these populations began to evolve in distinct directions. In Europe and parts of Western Asia, the harsh conditions of repeated ice ages forged a robust and resilient species perfectly adapted to cold climates. These would become the Neanderthals. Meanwhile, back in Africa, other populations continued their own evolutionary journey, eventually giving rise to the earliest Homo sapiens around 300,000 years ago. The Neanderthals were nothing like the brutish cavemen of popular imagination. Standing in their frozen landscape 400,000 years ago, they were sophisticated survivors who had mastered one of nature's most challenging environments. Their stocky, muscular bodies were perfectly designed for conserving heat in sub-zero temperatures. Their broad noses warmed the frigid air before it reached their lungs, while their powerful limbs and robust frames could withstand the physical demands of hunting massive prey like woolly mammoths and cave bears. But their adaptations went far beyond the physical. Archaeological evidence reveals that Neanderthals were master craftsmen who developed the sophisticated Levallois technique for stone tool production. This wasn't random napping. It was a carefully planned process that required foresight, skill, and deep understanding of stone properties. They would prepare a core by shaping its surface like a turtle shell, then, with a single, precise strike, extract a large, sharp flake that was immediately ready for use. This level of technological sophistication demonstrates cognitive abilities that rival our own. Their campsites tell stories of complex social organization and forward planning. Neanderthal groups carefully selected locations near water sources where animals would inevitably pass. They built hearths not just for warmth, but as gathering points for their communities. The ground around these fires was cleared and organized, with specific areas designated for tool storage, food preparation, and shelter. This level of organization suggests that despite their nomadic lifestyle, Neanderthals had developed sophisticated social structures and cultural practices. The discovery of buried Neanderthal remains with what appears to be grave goods has sparked intense debate about their spiritual beliefs. At sites like Shanidar Cave in Iraq, archaeologists found Neanderthal skeletons surrounded by flower pollen, suggesting possible burial rituals. While some scientists argue this could be natural accumulation, others see evidence of the first human attempts to grapple with mortality and perhaps even concepts of an afterlife. Living in small clan groups of perhaps 20 to 30 individuals, Neanderthals faced the constant challenge of genetic diversity. With population densities as low as 0.02 people per square mile, encounters with other groups were rare but crucial events. These meetings likely involved elaborate social rituals, feasting, music-making, and possibly the use of mind-altering substances. Such gatherings served multiple purposes. They allowed for the exchange of knowledge and techniques, facilitated mate selection to prevent inbreeding, and strengthened social bonds that could prove vital during harsh winters. The world these early humans inhabited was dramatically different from today's Earth. During glacial periods, vast ice sheets stretched across northern Europe and Asia, creating a landscape that seemed almost alien. Yet this wasn't a barren wasteland. The areas surrounding the glaciers formed a unique ecosystem known as the Mammoth Steppe, a cold grassland that supported enormous herds of megafauna. Woolly mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, giant bison, and cave bears roamed these frozen plains, pursued by equally impressive predators like cave lions and hyenas. Hunting these giants required not just individual skill, but coordinated group strategies that demonstrate remarkable intelligence and communication abilities. Neanderthals developed techniques for driving large animals into natural traps, coordinating ambush attacks, and efficiently processing massive carcasses. The famous wooden spears found at Schöningen, Germany, dating to over 300,000 years ago, represent some of the oldest known hunting weapons. These weren't crude sticks. They were carefully crafted tools with points carved from the densest part of the tree trunk, designed with an understanding of aerodynamics and balance that allowed them to be thrown accurately over considerable distances. But Neanderthals weren't just hunters. Analysis of their dental calculus reveals a surprisingly diverse diet that included cooked vegetables, nuts, and medicinal plants. They understood which plants could ease pain, reduce inflammation, or treat infections. Knowledge that represents thousands of years of accumulated wisdom passed down through generations. This pharmaceutical knowledge demonstrates not just intelligence, but cultural transmission of complex information. The question of Neanderthal communication abilities has fascinated researchers for decades. While we may never know exactly how they spoke, recent discoveries have provided tantalizing clues. The FOXP2 gene, crucial for language development in modern humans, has been found in Neanderthal DNA, suggesting they possessed at least some capacity for complex communication. Their hyoid bone, essential for speech production, is virtually identical to ours. Combined with their sophisticated tool-making abilities and evidence of cultural practices, this suggests that Neanderthals likely possessed some form of language, though it may have been quite different from modern human speech. Around 70,000 years ago, everything changed. Modern Homo sapiens began migrating out of Africa in waves, carrying with them new technologies, survival strategies, and perhaps, most importantly, new ways of thinking about the world. These migrations would lead to one of the most significant events in human evolutionary history, the meeting of different human species. When modern humans first encountered Neanderthals in Europe and Western Asia, it must have been an extraordinary moment. Here were beings that were clearly intelligent and culturally sophisticated, yet noticeably different in appearance and behavior. Recent genetic studies have revolutionized our understanding of what happened next. Rather than simply competing and fighting, these different human species also cooperated and intermingled. The sequencing of the Neanderthal genome in 2010 revealed something remarkable. Most people of non-African descent carry between 1 and 4% Neanderthal DNA in their genomes. This genetic legacy proves that our ancestors didn't just encounter Neanderthals. They formed relationships with them, had children together, and created hybrid lineages that survive to this day. In essence, Neanderthals didn't simply go extinct, they became part of us. But this genetic mixing wasn't just a footnote in evolutionary history. Those Neanderthal genes continue to influence modern humans in surprising ways. Some Neanderthal genetic variants affect our immune systems, helping us fight off diseases. Others influence our skin and hair color, our sleep patterns, and even our pain tolerance. In the high-altitude regions of Tibet, Neanderthal genetic variants help modern humans cope with low oxygen levels. These genetic gifts from our extinct cousins represent adaptations honed over hundreds of thousands of years of survival in harsh environments. The meeting of human species wasn't limited to Neanderthals and modern humans. In the caves of Siberia, archaeologists discovered evidence of another human species, the Denisovans. Known primarily from DNA extracted from a few teeth and bone fragments, these mysterious humans also contributed to the modern human gene pool. People in Southeast Asia and Oceania carry Denisovan DNA, suggesting that our ancestors encountered and interbred with multiple human species as they spread across the globe. Imagine what these first encounters might have been like. Picture a group of modern humans, perhaps following migrating herds across the grasslands of Central Asia, suddenly coming across clear signs of another intelligent presence. Carefully crafted stone tools, the remains of organized campsites, or perhaps even direct visual contact with these other humans. The initial reactions might have been fear, curiosity, or aggressive posturing. But over time, as these groups encountered each other repeatedly, more complex relationships would have developed. Trade and knowledge exchange likely played crucial roles in these interactions. Modern humans may have brought new hunting techniques, more sophisticated weapons, or innovative approaches to food processing. Neanderthals, with their deep knowledge of local environments and specialized cold weather adaptations, would have had valuable survival information to share. The exchange of marriage partners between groups would have been essential for maintaining genetic diversity in small scattered populations. These interactions weren't always peaceful. Archaeological evidence suggests that violence between human groups was not uncommon. Competition for the best hunting grounds, water sources, and shelter sites would have created tensions. Some Neanderthal remains show signs of violence that may have resulted from conflicts with other human groups. However, the genetic evidence of interbreeding suggests that cooperation and peaceful coexistence were at least as common as conflict. The landscape itself played a crucial role in shaping these interactions. During glacial periods, suitable habitats were compressed into narrow corridors and refugia. Rivers, mountain passes, and coastal areas became highways for human movement, increasing the likelihood of encounters between different groups. Cave systems provided shelter that might be shared or contested. The distribution of resources like flint for tool making, ochre for body decoration, and salt for food preservation created trade networks that connected distant communities. Cultural exchange was perhaps as important as genetic mixing. Archaeological sites from this period show evidence of technological innovations spreading rapidly across vast distances. New tool-making techniques, artistic styles, and survival strategies moved between groups faster than could be explained by simple migration. This suggests active communication and teaching between different human populations. The creation of art and symbolic objects provides some of the most intriguing evidence of these interactions. Neanderthal sites have yielded pierced shells and teeth that were clearly used as ornaments, often with traces of red ochre pigment. Cave paintings in Spain, once attributed solely to modern humans, may actually have been created by Neanderthals. These artistic expressions suggest not just individual creativity, but shared symbolic systems that could facilitate communication between groups with different languages. Music may have played a role in these cross-species interactions. A bone flute found at a Neanderthal site in Slovenia demonstrates that these early humans were capable of creating musical instruments. Music, being a universal human language that transcends verbal communication barriers, could have served as a bridge between different human species. Imagine gatherings where different human groups came together, sharing songs and rhythms that helped forge bonds despite their differences. The treatment of the dead provides another window into the complex relationships between human species. Some burial sites contain individuals with mixed modern human and Neanderthal features, suggesting that hybrid individuals were accepted and cared for by their communities. The careful burial of these individuals indicates that they held important places in their societies, rather than being outcasts or marginalized figures. Children born from unions between different human species would have faced unique challenges and opportunities. These hybrid individuals might have inherited the best traits from both lineages. Perhaps the cold adaptations and robust physiques of Neanderthals combined with the innovative thinking and social flexibility of modern humans. They could have served as cultural bridges, translating between groups and facilitating cooperation. The extinction of Neanderthals around 40,000 years ago remains one of paleontology's greatest mysteries. Despite their obvious intelligence, sophisticated culture, and successful adaptation to challenging environments, they gradually disappeared from the archaeological record. Climate change during the late Pleistocene may have played a role, as rapid environmental shifts disrupted the ecosystems they had mastered. Competition with modern humans for resources likely intensified as populations grew and suitable habitats shrank. However, the story of Neanderthal extinction is more complex than simple replacement. In some regions, Neanderthal populations may have been absorbed into expanding modern human groups through interbreeding. In others, they may have maintained separate identities for thousands of years after the first contacts. The last known Neanderthal populations survived in southern Spain and Gibraltar, clinging to coastal refugia until around 28,000 years ago. The legacy of these extinct human species extends far beyond their genetic contributions to modern humanity. They represent alternative paths that human evolution might have taken, different solutions to the challenges of survival and social organization. By studying their tools, their art, their burial practices, and their genetic legacy, we gain insights into the fundamental nature of humanity itself. Modern archaeological techniques continue to reveal new aspects of these ancient interactions. Isotope analysis of bones can track the movements of individuals across landscapes, revealing patterns of migration and territorial use. DNA extracted from ancient sediments can detect the presence of different human species even when no bones are preserved. Advanced dating techniques allow researchers to determine whether different human groups occupied the same areas simultaneously or at different times. The story of human species interaction during the Pleistocene challenges our understanding of what it means to be human. Rather than a single linear progression from primitive ancestors to modern humans, evolution emerges as a complex web of relationships, migrations, and cultural exchanges. We are not the end product of a simple evolutionary tree, but rather the result of multiple streams of human development that occasionally merged and diverged over hundreds of thousands of years. This realization has profound implications for how we view human diversity today. The genetic variants we inherited from Neanderthals and Denisovans contribute to the biological diversity that helps our species adapt to different environments and challenges. Rather than representing primitive traits to be overcome, these ancient genetic legacies are valuable resources that continue to serve important functions in modern human populations. The tools and technologies developed by extinct human species also continue to inspire modern innovations. The Levallois napping technique developed by Neanderthals demonstrates principles of material engineering that remain relevant today. Their understanding of plant medicines laid the groundwork for pharmaceutical knowledge that still influences modern medicine. Their strategies for surviving in harsh environments provide models for human adaptation to climate change and extreme conditions. As we continue to explore the archaeological record and analyze ancient DNA, new discoveries regularly reshape our understanding of human evolution and interaction. Recent findings suggest that the mixing between human species was more extensive and complex than previously imagined. Some researchers propose that rather than distinct species, these early humans represented different populations of a single, highly variable species that was in the process of diverging into separate lineages. The question of consciousness and self-awareness in extinct human species remains tantalizingly unanswered. Did Neanderthals ponder their place in the world as we do? Did they have concepts of past and future, dreams and aspirations? The evidence of their artistic expression, careful burial of the dead, and sophisticated tool-making suggests cognitive abilities that approached or equaled our own. Yet their thought processes may have been fundamentally different, shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of separate evolutionary development. Understanding these ancient interactions also provides insights into human behavior and social organization. The ability of different human species to cooperate, trade, and form lasting relationships despite their differences demonstrates the fundamental sociability that characterizes our lineage. At the same time, evidence of violence and competition reminds us that conflict has deep roots in human history. The environments that shaped these early human interactions continue to influence human development today. The ice ages that forged Neanderthal adaptations also created the climatic conditions that drove human migration and technological innovation. The landscapes where different human species met and mingled still bear traces of their presence in the form of archaeological sites, genetic patterns in modern populations, and even the distribution of certain cultural practices. As we face our own environmental challenges and social complexities, the story of Pleistocene human interactions offers both inspiration and cautionary lessons. These early humans demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability in the face of dramatic climate changes and resource scarcity. Their ability to innovate, cooperate, and share knowledge across group boundaries helped them survive conditions that would challenge even modern technological society. The genetic legacy of extinct human species continues to be discovered in modern populations around the world. Each new study reveals additional connections between ancient and contemporary humans, demonstrating that the story of human evolution is far from over. We carry within our DNA the memories of epic journeys, survival struggles, and intimate connections that shaped our species over hundreds of thousands of years. The tools, art, and cultural practices of extinct human species also continue to influence modern human behavior in subtle ways. Archaeological evidence suggests that certain technological innovations, artistic techniques, and social practices may have been transmitted culturally across species boundaries, becoming part of the shared human heritage that persists today. This remarkable chapter in human history reminds us that our species has always been defined by our ability to adapt, cooperate, and learn from others, even when those others were members of different human species entirely. The story of how cavemen lived with other species of humans is ultimately a story about the fundamental interconnectedness of all human life, past and present. Let's delve deeper into the complex tapestry of interactions between different human species during the Pleistocene era. When we examine the archaeological evidence more closely, we begin to understand that the encounters between Neanderthals, Denisovans, and modern humans were far more intricate and meaningful than simple territorial disputes or fleeting meetings. The physical evidence tells us a remarkable story. At sites like Shanidar Cave in Iraq, we find layers of occupation that span thousands of years, suggesting that different human groups may have used the same locations repeatedly. These caves weren't just temporary shelters. They were strategic locations that offered protection, access to water, and commanding views of hunting grounds. The fact that multiple species utilized these same spaces over millennia indicates a sophisticated understanding of landscape and resources that transcended species boundaries. What makes these discoveries even more fascinating is the evidence of cultural transmission. Stone tool technologies that we once thought were exclusive to modern humans have been found in Neanderthal sites, and vice versa. The Châteauperonian industry, for instance, represents a tool-making tradition that appears to bridge the gap between typical Neanderthal Mousterian tools and the more sophisticated Upper Paleolithic technologies associated with modern humans. This suggests that knowledge and techniques were being shared, possibly through direct contact and observation. The DNA evidence has revolutionized our understanding of these interactions. We now know that interbreeding wasn't a rare occurrence, but happened multiple times across different regions and time periods. The genetic signatures tell us that modern humans encountered Neanderthals shortly after leaving Africa, probably in the Middle East around 60,000 years ago. But the story doesn't end there. Separate populations of modern humans encountered Neanderthals again in Europe, and different groups encountered Denisovans in Asia. Each of these meetings left distinct genetic fingerprints that we can still detect today. These genetic exchanges weren't just random encounters. The fact that we carry beneficial alleles from both Neanderthals and Denisovans suggests that natural selection favored individuals who inherited certain traits from these extinct species. For example, the EPAS1 gene variant that helps Tibetans survive at high altitudes came from Denisovans. Similarly, several immune system genes that help us fight off infections were inherited from Neanderthals. This means that these encounters weren't just meetings between different groups, they were evolutionary advantages that helped our ancestors survive and thrive in new environments. But beyond the genetics and stone tools, there's evidence of something even more profound: symbolic behavior and artistic expression. The cave paintings at La Pasiega, Maltravieso, and Ardales in Spain have been dated to over 65,000 years ago, before modern humans are thought to have arrived in Europe. This means Neanderthals were creating symbolic art, expressing themselves in ways we once thought were uniquely modern human behaviors. Hand stencils, abstract symbols, and pigmented cave walls reveal minds capable of symbolic thought and creative expression. Personal ornaments provide another window into these ancient interactions. Perforated shells, animal teeth modified into pendants, and evidence of ochre used for body painting have been found at both Neanderthal and early modern human sites. Some of these ornamental traditions appear to cross species boundaries, suggesting either parallel development of symbolic behavior or direct cultural exchange between groups. The burial practices of Neanderthals also hinted complex social and possibly spiritual lives. At Shanidar Cave, the famous Shanidar 4, burial appeared to be accompanied by flowers, though this interpretation remains debated. More certain is evidence from sites like La Chapelle aux Saints and Le Moustier, where Neanderthal remains show clear signs of intentional burial. Bodies were placed in specially prepared graves, sometimes with grave goods like stone tools. This behavior suggests not just an understanding of death, but possibly beliefs about an afterlife, or at least respect for the deceased. The coexistence of different human species also created unique ecological pressures. Competition for resources was undoubtedly intense during harsh glacial periods when food was scarce and suitable habitats were limited. However, evidence suggests that different species may have developed complementary survival strategies. Neanderthals, with their robust build and cold adaptations, may have specialized in hunting large game in open tundra environments, while early modern humans might have been more versatile, exploiting a wider range of food sources, including small game, fish, and plant foods. Archaeological sites reveal evidence of sophisticated hunting strategies that required coordination and planning. At locations like Schöningen in Germany, wooden spears over 300,000 years old demonstrate that early human species were capable of complex tool manufacture and coordinated group hunts. The preservation of these organic materials gives us rare insights into the daily lives of our ancestors and their sophisticated understanding of materials and craftsmanship. The role of climate cannot be understated in shaping these interactions. The Pleistocene was characterized by dramatic climate fluctuations, with ice ages alternating with warmer interglacial periods. These changes would have forced human populations to migrate, adapt, or perish. During harsh glacial maxima, populations would have been compressed into refugia, areas where survival was possible. These refugia would have been places where different human species might have come into closer contact, increasing the likelihood of interaction, competition, and interbreeding. Language remains one of the most intriguing aspects of these ancient interactions. While we cannot directly study the languages of extinct human species, we can infer capabilities from anatomical evidence and archaeological remains. The hyoid bone from Kabara Cave suggests that Neanderthals had the anatomical capability for complex speech. The FOXP2 gene, crucial for language development, shows that Neanderthals shared the same variant as modern humans. This suggests that communication between different human species may have been possible, facilitating cultural exchange and cooperation. The disappearance of Neanderthals around 40,000 years ago remains one of the great mysteries of human evolution. It wasn't a sudden extinction, but rather a gradual process that took place over thousands of years. The last known Neanderthal populations survived in isolated refugia in southern Spain and Gibraltar, suggesting that they were gradually outcompeted rather than suddenly replaced. This gradual process implies ongoing contact and competition with modern humans right up until the end. Recent discoveries continue to reshape our understanding of these ancient interactions. The Denisova cave in Siberia, where Denisovan remains were first discovered, has yielded evidence of occupation by multiple human species over tens of thousands of years. Remarkably, researchers have identified a bone fragment from a first-generation hybrid, the daughter of a Neanderthal mother and Denisovan father. This individual, nicknamed Denny, provides direct evidence that interbreeding between different human species produced viable offspring who survived to adulthood. The story of human evolution is not one of linear progression, but of complex interactions, hybridization, and cultural exchange. The Pleistocene world was populated by multiple human species who encountered each other, learned from each other, competed with each other, and ultimately became part of each other through genetic and cultural inheritance. Understanding these interactions helps us appreciate the remarkable diversity and adaptability that characterizes our species today. As we continue to excavate new sites and develop new analytical techniques, our understanding of these ancient interactions grows ever more sophisticated. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of human evolution, revealing a past that was far more complex and interconnected than we ever imagined. The legacy of these interactions lives on not just in our DNA, but in our capacity for adaptation, creativity, and survival in diverse environments around the world. In our previous exploration, we uncovered how different species of early humans coexisted and left traces of their interactions woven into our very DNA. But to truly understand what our ancestors experienced when encountering other human species, we need to examine the world through their eyes. What did these meetings actually look like? How did they communicate across species lines? And what drove some interactions toward cooperation while others erupted into conflict? Picture this. A small group of Homo sapiens, perhaps 15 individuals, cresting a hill in what is now southern France around 42,000 years ago. The landscape before them is dramatically different from today's Mediterranean coast. Instead of olive groves and vineyards, they see vast grasslands dotted with mammoth herds, their tusks gleaming in the afternoon sun. Rivers cut through valleys thick with birch and pine forests, while in the distance, snow-capped peaks remind them that the Ice Age still grips much of Europe. But something else catches their attention: smoke. Not the wild, chaotic smoke of a forest fire, but the controlled, purposeful smoke of a campfire. And where there's fire, there are people. The question that would determine their fate was simple, yet profound: friend or foe? As they approach, the differences become apparent immediately. The figures around the fire are stockier, more robust, with broader faces and prominent brow ridges. These are Neanderthals, and this encounter represents one of thousands that shaped human history. The Homo sapiens group freezes, hands instinctively moving to their spears. The Neanderthals notice them too, rising slowly from their positions around the fire. For a moment that stretches like eternity, two different human species size each other up. What happens next depends on countless variables: the season, the availability of resources, the specific cultural practices of each group, even the personalities of the individuals involved. But one thing is certain: this meeting will be remembered and discussed around fires for generations to come, becoming part of the oral traditions that bind these communities together. Communication between different human species presented unique challenges that we can barely imagine today. While both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens possessed the cognitive capacity for complex language, their specific languages had evolved separately for hundreds of thousands of years. The sounds they made, the gestures they used, even the rhythm and flow of their speech would have been distinctly different. Yet humans are remarkably adaptable creatures. Archaeological evidence suggests these groups developed sophisticated methods of cross-species communication, hand signals, shared activities like tool-making, and even artistic expression served as universal languages that transcended species boundaries. The act of sharing food, creating fire together, or working on a common task could communicate peaceful intentions more effectively than any words. Trade became one of the most powerful forms of communication between different human groups. Neanderthals possessed superior knowledge of local resources, having lived in European environments for hundreds of thousands of years. They knew which caves provided the best shelter, where to find the highest quality stone for tool making, and how to track seasonal animal migrations. Homo sapiens, meanwhile, brought innovations from their African homeland and the experiences gained during their long journey across continents. Archaeological sites across Europe reveal evidence of these exchanges. Neanderthal sites contain tools made from materials that could only have been obtained hundreds of miles away, suggesting extensive trade networks. Similarly, early Homo sapiens sites show adoption of distinctly Neanderthal techniques, particularly in the sophisticated preparation of animal hides and the creation of specialized hunting tools. But perhaps the most intimate form of communication occurred during the formation of mixed communities. Genetic evidence shows us that interbreeding between species was not rare, isolated events, but part of sustained contact between groups. This suggests the existence of communities where Neanderthals and Homo sapiens lived side by side, sharing not just genes, but entire ways of life. Imagine the daily reality of such a mixed community. Children of different species playing together, learning each other's languages, absorbing traditions from multiple lineages. Adults collaborating on hunts, with Neanderthal knowledge of local animal behavior complementing Homo sapiens' innovations in hunting technology. Elders from both species sharing stories around evening fires, their different perspectives on the world creating a richer, more complex understanding of their environment. These mixed communities faced unique challenges. Different species had varying lifespans, growth rates, and social structures. Neanderthal children developed faster than Homo sapiens children, reaching maturity earlier but potentially having shorter overall lifespans. This created complex dynamics around leadership, mate selection, and the transmission of knowledge across generations. The evidence suggests these communities developed sophisticated solutions to such challenges. Burial sites from this period sometimes contain individuals with mixed ancestry, interred with grave goods that reflect both Neanderthal and Homo sapiens traditions. This indicates that mixed heritage individuals were not outcasts, but integral members of their communities, perhaps even serving as cultural bridges between different groups. Conflict, however, was equally part of the reality of interspecies contact. Competition for resources during harsh winters could turn friendly neighbors into desperate enemies. Archaeological evidence from several European sites suggests violent encounters between different human groups. Neanderthal remains bearing cut marks from stone tools, Homo sapiens settlements that appear to have been hastily abandoned, and caches of weapons hidden in caves all point to periods of intense conflict. But even these conflicts reveal something profound about our ancestors' cognitive abilities. Warfare requires planning, coordination, and the ability to think strategically about opponents' likely actions. The fact that different human species engaged in organized conflict demonstrates their sophisticated understanding of group dynamics and their capacity for complex social reasoning. Climate change played a crucial role in determining whether encounters between species led to cooperation or conflict. During periods of environmental stability, when resources were abundant, different groups could coexist peacefully, even beneficially. Archaeological evidence from these periods shows extensive trade networks, shared technological innovations, and evidence of cultural exchange. However, during periods of rapid climate change, when glaciers advanced or retreated quickly, altering entire landscapes within a generation, competition intensified dramatically. The archaeological record from these periods shows a different pattern. Fortified settlements, evidence of resource hoarding, and signs of increased violence between groups. One of the most fascinating aspects of interspecies contact was the exchange of technological knowledge. Neanderthals possessed incredibly sophisticated techniques for working with organic materials. Their methods for preparing animal hides, creating wooden tools, and even producing adhesives were often superior to early Homo sapiens techniques. Archaeological analysis shows that Homo sapiens communities that had contact with Neanderthals quickly adopted these technologies. Conversely, Homo sapiens brought innovations that revolutionized Neanderthal communities. The bow and arrow, more efficient hunting strategies, and new methods of food processing spread rapidly through Neanderthal populations in contact with Homo sapiens. This technological exchange accelerated the pace of innovation for both species, creating a period of rapid cultural evolution unlike anything seen before in human history. The impact of these technological exchanges cannot be overstated. They represent the first examples of large-scale knowledge transfer between different human lineages, establishing patterns of cultural diffusion that would later become fundamental to human civilization. The fact that both species were capable of learning from each other, adapting foreign technologies to their own needs, and improving upon borrowed innovations demonstrates cognitive flexibility that was crucial to human success. Artistic expression provided another avenue for interspecies communication and cultural exchange. Cave paintings from this period sometimes show evidence of multiple artistic traditions within the same cave system. Different pigments, varying artistic techniques, and diverse symbolic representations suggest that caves served as meeting places where different human species shared their artistic visions. The famous cave paintings at sites like Chauvet and Lascaux may represent collaborative artistic efforts between different human species. The sophisticated understanding of animal anatomy, the use of cave contours to create three-dimensional effects, and the complex symbolic systems employed in these artworks suggest that their creation involved extensive knowledge sharing between different groups. Music and dance likely played similar roles in interspecies communication. While we cannot directly observe these activities in the archaeological record, the creation of musical instruments from this period shows increasing sophistication and standardization that suggests widespread cultural exchange. Bone flutes found at both Neanderthal and Homo sapiens sites show similar design principles, indicating that musical traditions were shared across species boundaries. The spiritual and symbolic lives of these different human species intersected in profound ways. Burial practices from mixed communities show fascinating combinations of traditions. Some graves contain individuals buried in Neanderthal fashion, but with Homo sapiens grave goods, or vice versa. This suggests that spiritual beliefs were not rigidly species-specific, but could be adapted and combined as communities integrated. Evidence of shared ritual sites is particularly compelling. Certain caves and rock formations show signs of use by multiple human species over extended periods. The accumulation of symbolic objects, the arrangement of bones and stones in meaningful patterns, and the repeated use of specific locations for ceremonial purposes all point to shared spiritual practices that transcended species boundaries. These shared spiritual traditions may have been crucial in facilitating peaceful coexistence between different human groups. Common beliefs and rituals could create bonds that overcame the natural suspicion and fear that might arise when encountering physically different humans. The development of shared mythologies and origin stories could help different species see themselves as part of a larger human family, rather than as competitors for the same resources. The role of hybrid individuals in these interspecies communities deserves special attention. People with mixed Neanderthal and Homo sapiens ancestry were not anomalies but bridges between worlds. They could communicate effectively with both parent species, understand both cultural traditions, and serve as translators and mediators during tense negotiations. These hybrid individuals may have played crucial roles in facilitating technological and cultural exchange. Their unique position allowed them to see the strengths and weaknesses of both traditions, potentially driving innovation by combining the best elements of different approaches. Archaeological evidence suggests that some of the most significant technological advances of this period occurred in regions where interspecies contact was most frequent. The psychological impact of interspecies contact on our ancestors was profound. Imagine the cognitive challenge of encountering beings that were clearly human, but distinctly different. This experience would have forced our ancestors to expand their understanding of what it meant to be human, to develop more nuanced concepts of identity and belonging. This psychological adaptation was crucial for the later success of Homo sapiens. The ability to recognize and cooperate with physically and culturally different humans became essential as populations expanded and diversified. The cognitive flexibility developed through interspecies contact may have been one of the key advantages that allowed Homo sapiens to eventually spread across the entire globe. The environmental knowledge exchange between species was particularly valuable. Neanderthals had spent hundreds of thousands of years adapting to European and Asian environments. They possessed detailed knowledge of seasonal patterns, animal behaviors, plant resources, and geological formations that would have taken Homo sapiens generations to acquire independently. This knowledge transfer allowed Homo sapiens to establish themselves successfully in new environments much more quickly than would have been possible otherwise. The detailed understanding of Ice Age ecosystems, the knowledge of how to survive in extreme cold, and the sophisticated hunting techniques developed by Neanderthals all became part of the survival toolkit that enabled Homo sapiens to thrive in challenging environments. Similarly, Homo sapiens brought knowledge of different environments and survival strategies from their African origins and their journey across continents. This diverse environmental knowledge, combined with Neanderthal expertise in local conditions, created a powerful combination that enhanced the survival prospects of both species in mixed communities. The linguistic legacy of interspecies contact remains largely hidden from us, but we can make educated inferences about its significance. The development of trade languages, systems of communication that allowed different species to conduct complex negotiations and exchanges, represents one of the earliest examples of linguistic innovation driven by cultural contact. These contact languages may have been simpler than the full languages of either parent species, but they would have been remarkably sophisticated by the standards of interspecies communication. The ability to discuss abstract concepts like trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and social obligations across species lines demonstrates cognitive and linguistic capabilities that were truly remarkable for their time. The social structures that emerged in mixed communities were necessarily complex and innovative. Traditional kinship systems based on biological relationships had to be adapted to accommodate individuals with mixed ancestry. Leadership structures had to account for the different strengths and knowledge bases of different species. Marriage and partnership customs had to evolve to facilitate interspecies relationships while maintaining social stability. These social innovations were not just practical necessities, but represented fundamental advances in human social organization. The ability to create inclusive communities that incorporated diverse individuals and groups became one of the hallmarks of human civilization. The social technologies developed during the period of interspecies contact provided the foundation for later developments in human social organization. Trade networks established during this period of interspecies contact were remarkably extensive and sophisticated. Archaeological evidence shows that materials and finished goods traveled hundreds of miles from their sources, indicating that different human communities were connected by complex webs of exchange relationships. These trade networks were not simple barter systems, but sophisticated economic arrangements that required long-term planning, trust between distant communities, and standardized measures of value. The development of such systems represents a major advance in human cognitive and social capabilities, demonstrating that our ancestors were capable of maintaining complex relationships across vast distances and extended time periods. The seasonal cycles of contact between different human species created rhythms of interaction that shaped the development of both communities. During summer months, when travel was easier and resources more abundant, different groups would come together for trade, social exchange, and seasonal hunting activities. These gatherings became focal points for cultural exchange and innovation. Winter months, when communities were more isolated, became periods for consolidating and developing the knowledge and technologies acquired during the summer contact periods. This cyclical pattern of contact and isolation created optimal conditions for cultural development, allowing for both the acquisition of new ideas and the time necessary to fully integrate them into existing cultural systems. The impact of interspecies contact on population genetics was profound and long-lasting. The genetic diversity introduced through interspecies breeding enhanced the adaptive potential of both species. providing genetic variants that proved crucial for survival in changing environments. This genetic mixing was not random, but showed clear patterns related to environmental pressures and social structures. Populations in challenging environments, such as high-altitude regions or areas with extreme seasonal variation, show higher levels of genetic mixing between species. This suggests that the hybrid vigor resulting from interspecies breeding provided real survival advantages in these demanding environments. The genetic legacy of these ancient encounters continues to benefit modern human populations today. As we piece together the evidence from archaeology, genetics, and paleoanthropology, a picture emerges of our ancestors living in a world far more complex and interconnected than previously imagined. The encounters between different human species were not brief, isolated events, but sustained interactions that shaped the development of human culture, technology, and society in fundamental ways. These ancient meetings between different branches of the human family tree represent some of the most significant moments in our species' history. They demonstrate the remarkable adaptability, intelligence, and social sophistication of our ancestors, while also revealing the deep roots of both human cooperation and conflict. The legacy of these encounters lives on not just in our DNA, but in the fundamental patterns of human behavior that continue to shape our world today. The story of interspecies contact reminds us that human diversity has always been one of our greatest strengths. The ability to learn from others, to adapt and innovate through cultural exchange, and to create inclusive communities that transcend traditional boundaries has been crucial to human success throughout our history. As we face the challenges of our modern world, perhaps we can draw inspiration from our ancestors' remarkable ability to find common ground across even the most fundamental differences. Our exploration of ancient human interactions reveals a tapestry of survival, strategies that extended far beyond simple tool-making and hunting. The daily lives of our ancestors were intricately woven around complex social networks, communication systems, and cultural practices that would shape the very foundation of human civilization. Language and communication among these early human species remains one of the most fascinating puzzles in our evolutionary story. While we cannot hear the voices that once echoed across the Pleistocene landscapes, archaeological evidence suggests that Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens possessed sophisticated means of conveying information. The coordinated hunting strategies we've discussed, the careful planning evident in their campsites, and the transmission of tool-making techniques across generations all point to advanced communication abilities. Recent studies of Neanderthal hyoid bones, the small bone in the throat that supports the tongue and larynx, indicate they possessed the anatomical structures necessary for complex speech. Computer modeling of their vocal tracts suggests they could produce a range of sounds comparable to modern humans, though perhaps with some limitations in certain vowel sounds. This doesn't mean they spoke languages identical to ours, but rather that they likely developed their own sophisticated systems of verbal communication. Beyond spoken language, these ancient peoples almost certainly employed a rich array of non-verbal communication methods. Hand gestures, body language, and facial expressions would have been crucial for silent hunting coordination. The discovery of ochre and other pigments at archaeological sites suggests they may have used body painting not just for ceremonial purposes, but as a form of visual communication, perhaps indicating tribal affiliation, social status, or even individual identity within the group. The social hierarchies within these ancient communities were likely more nuanced than we initially imagined. Evidence suggests that leadership roles may have been fluid, changing based on circumstances and expertise. During hunting expeditions, the most skilled tracker might lead the group, while during tool-making sessions, the most experienced craftsperson would take charge. This flexible approach to leadership would have maximized the group's survival chances while fostering cooperation rather than rigid dominant structures. Child-rearing practices among these early humans, reveal remarkable sophistication in knowledge transfer. Archaeological evidence shows that children as young as 5 or 6 were already learning to knap stone tools, starting with simple techniques and gradually mastering more complex methods. This extended learning period, much longer than that of other primates, suggests that childhood served as a crucial apprenticeship phase where cultural knowledge was carefully transmitted from one generation to the next. The role of elders in these societies cannot be overstated. Unlike many animal species where aging individuals become burdens, human groups actively cared for their elderly members. This wasn't merely compassion, it was strategic survival. Elders possessed irreplaceable knowledge about rare events like severe droughts, unusual animal migrations, or dangerous weather patterns that might occur only once or twice in a lifetime. Their memories served as living libraries, storing crucial information that could mean the difference between survival and extinction for the entire group. Musical expression and rhythmic activities likely played significant roles in these ancient societies. While musical instruments from this period are rare, some researchers have identified possible bone flutes and percussion instruments among Neanderthal artifacts. Music and rhythm would have served multiple functions, from coordinating group activities to strengthening social bonds during gatherings. The shared experience of creating music together may have been one of the earliest forms of collective emotional expression, helping to build the strong group cohesion necessary for survival. The concept of territory and resource management among these early humans was surprisingly sophisticated. Rather than simply wandering aimlessly across the landscape, evidence suggests they maintained detailed mental maps of their territories, knowing precisely where to find specific resources during different seasons. Water sources, seasonal plant foods, animal migration routes, and suitable shelter locations were all carefully catalogued in their collective memory. These territorial boundaries weren't necessarily fixed or aggressively defended like those of modern nation-states. Instead, they appear to have been fluid, with different groups negotiating access to resources through complex social interactions. During times of abundance, territories might overlap peacefully, while during scarcity, groups might need to retreat to core areas they considered exclusively theirs. Trade networks among these ancient peoples extended far beyond what we might expect. Archaeological evidence reveals that valuable materials like high-quality stone, for tool making, rare pigments, and decorative shells traveled hundreds of miles from their sources. This suggests not only contact between distant groups, but also sophisticated systems of exchange and possibly even early forms of currency or barter systems. The health and medical knowledge of these early humans was remarkably advanced for their time. Evidence of bone setting, wound treatment, and even primitive surgical procedures has been found at various archaeological sites. They possessed detailed knowledge of medicinal plants and likely had specialists within their groups who focused on healing practices. The care of disabled individuals, evidenced by skeletons showing healed injuries that would have required long-term assistance, demonstrates a level of social support that speaks to their humanity. Artistic expression flourished in ways that continue to astonish researchers. Beyond the famous cave paintings, these early humans created jewelry, carved figurines, and decorated everyday objects with intricate patterns. These artistic endeavors weren't merely decorative, they likely served as forms of storytelling, historical record-keeping, and identity markers. Each carved line or painted symbol may have carried specific meanings understood within their cultural context. The spiritual and ceremonial lives of these ancient peoples remain largely mysterious, yet tantalizing clues suggest rich inner worlds. Burial practices became increasingly elaborate over time, with bodies arranged in specific positions accompanied by tools, flowers, or food offerings. These practices indicate beliefs about death, afterlife, and the continuation of identity beyond physical existence. Some archaeological sites suggest possible shamanic practices with evidence of altered states of consciousness induced through various means. Cave paintings in hard-to-reach locations, often requiring dangerous climbs or crawls through narrow passages, may have been created during vision quests or spiritual journeys. These experiences might have served to strengthen group identity and provide psychological frameworks for understanding their place in the natural world. The relationship between these early humans and their environment was one of intimate knowledge and careful balance. They understood animal behavior patterns with extraordinary precision, knowing not just when and where animals would be found, but how they would react to different hunting strategies. This knowledge extended to plant cycles, weather patterns, and seasonal changes that affected every aspect of their survival. Climate change during the Pleistocene presented constant challenges that required remarkable adaptability. As glaciers advanced and retreated, forests gave way to grasslands and back again. These human groups had to repeatedly modify their survival strategies. Those who successfully navigated these changes left descendants, while those who couldn't adapt faced extinction. The legacy of these ancient interactions extends far beyond our DNA. The fundamental human traits we consider most essential, our capacity for cooperation, our ability to learn and teach complex skills, our drive to create and explore, all emerged from the survival pressures and opportunities these early humans faced together. Their innovations in tool-making, their development of language, their creation of art and music, their establishment of trade networks, and their care for community members laid the groundwork for everything that would follow in human civilization. As we continue to uncover new archaeological evidence and develop more sophisticated analytical techniques, our understanding of these remarkable ancestors deepens. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of human evolution, revealing that the story of our species is far richer and more complex than we ever imagined. The cavemen of our imagination, primitive and brutish, are replaced by the reality of sophisticated, adaptable, and deeply human ancestors whose legacy lives on in every aspect of our modern lives. The Denisovans remain one of our most enigmatic human relatives, known almost entirely through fragments of DNA rather than complete skeletons. While Neanderthals left behind caves full of artifacts and burial sites, the Denisovans have whispered their secrets through genetic traces scattered across modern populations from Tibet to Papua New Guinea. Their story is one of adaptation to extreme environments, sophisticated tool use, and, perhaps most remarkably, their ability to survive in some of the harshest conditions on Earth. The first hint of Denisovan existence came from a single finger bone discovered in Denisova Cave in Siberia's Altai Mountains. This tiny fragment, no larger than a human thumb, revolutionized our understanding of human evolution when scientists extracted DNA from it in 2010. The genetic signature was unlike anything seen before, neither Neanderthal nor modern human, but something entirely distinct. This was our first introduction to a ghost population that had been hiding in plain sight within our own genomes. What makes the Denisovans particularly fascinating is their apparent mastery of high-altitude living. Modern Tibetans carry Denisovan DNA variants that allow them to thrive at elevations where oxygen levels would leave most people gasping for breath. These genetic adaptations, inherited from ancient interbreeding events, regulate hemoglobin production and blood flow in ways that make life possible on the roof of the world. The Denisovans had essentially evolved biological solutions to environmental challenges that modern humans still struggle with using technology. Archaeological evidence suggests that Denisovans occupied Denisova Cave for tens of thousands of years, sharing this space at different times with both Neanderthals and early modern humans. The cave's stratified layers tell a story of changing occupants, each group leaving behind their own technological signatures. Denisovan layers contain sophisticated stone tools, bone implements, and even jewelry made from animal teeth and carved bone. These artifacts reveal a people who are not merely surviving but creating beauty and meaning in their harsh mountain environment. Recent discoveries have pushed the boundaries of what we thought possible for ancient DNA preservation. Scientists have extracted Denisovan genetic material from cave sediments, revealing their presence even in layers where no actual bones were found. This environmental DNA tells us that Denisovans used fire regularly, processed plant materials for food and tools, and maintained organized living spaces within the cave complex. The genetic signatures in the soil layers suggest they returned to the cave seasonally, possibly following migration patterns of the animals they hunted. The Denisovan toolkit was remarkably sophisticated for its time period. Bone needles found in Denisovan layers suggest they were capable of creating fitted clothing, crucial for survival in the extreme cold of the Altai Mountains. Carved bone points and implements indicate they had developed specialized hunting techniques adapted to their mountainous environment. Some tools show evidence of hafting, where stone points were attached to wooden handles using organic adhesives, demonstrating forward thinking and complex manufacturing processes. Perhaps most intriguingly, Denisovans appear to have been among the first humans to master high-altitude environments. Their genetic legacy includes adaptations that allow for efficient oxygen use at extreme elevations, better cold tolerance, and enhanced metabolism suited for harsh mountain conditions. These adaptations were so successful that they persist in modern populations across Asia, from the Himalayas to the Andes, wherever humans have needed to survive at high altitudes. The social structure of Denisovan groups likely resembled that of other early human populations, with small, closely knit bands that occasionally encountered other groups for trade, mating, and knowledge exchange. Genetic analysis reveals that Denisovans maintained relatively small population sizes throughout their existence, which may have contributed to their eventual disappearance, but also helped preserve their unique genetic adaptations through bottleneck effects. Evidence suggests that Denisovans were capable of symbolic behavior and abstract thinking. Carved bone fragments and modified animal teeth found in Denisovan layers show deliberate alteration for aesthetic purposes rather than purely functional ones. These early forms of art and personal ornamentation indicate a rich cultural life that included concepts of beauty, identity, and possibly spiritual beliefs about the world around them. The relationship between Denisovans and other human groups was complex and multifaceted. Genetic evidence shows that they interbred not only with anatomically modern humans, but also with other archaic human populations we haven't yet identified. This ghost DNA suggests that the human family tree during the Pleistocene was far more complex than previously imagined, with multiple species and subspecies interacting, competing, and occasionally cooperating across vast geographical ranges. Climate data from the Altai region during Denisovan occupation reveals a landscape of extreme seasonal variation. Winters brought temperatures well below freezing, while summers could be surprisingly warm. The Denisovans developed strategies for surviving these dramatic seasonal shifts, including food storage techniques, seasonal migration patterns, and the creation of warm clothing and shelter. Their success in this environment speaks to remarkable adaptability and intelligence. Recent archaeological work has revealed that Denisovans may have been the first humans to consistently occupy high-altitude environments above 4,000 meters. This represents a significant expansion of human ecological niches and demonstrates their ability to push the boundaries of where human life was possible. The physiological adaptations they developed for high-altitude living represent one of the most successful examples of human evolution in response to environmental pressure. The mystery of Denisovan physical appearance remains largely unsolved. Without complete skeletons, scientists have had to rely on genetic analysis and comparative anatomy to reconstruct what these ancient humans might have looked like. Preliminary studies suggest they may have been more robust than modern humans, with broader skulls and more pronounced brow ridges, but the full picture remains tantalizingly out of reach. Advanced genetic analysis has revealed that modern Melanesian populations carry the highest percentages of Denisovan DNA, sometimes exceeding 5% of their total genome. This suggests that Denisovans had a much wider geographical range than initially thought, extending far beyond Siberia into Southeast Asia and possibly even into the Pacific Islands. This expanded range implies sophisticated seafaring abilities and adaptability to tropical as well as Arctic environments. The timing of Denisovan extinction remains uncertain, but genetic evidence suggests they may have survived much longer than Neanderthals in some regions. Some populations may have persisted until as recently as 30,000 years ago, overlapping significantly with the expansion of modern humans across Asia. This prolonged coexistence provided multiple opportunities for genetic exchange and cultural interaction. Tool analysis from Denisovan sites reveals innovation in bone and antler working that parallels developments in European Neanderthal populations. Specialized tools for processing plant materials, working hides, and creating composite implements suggest a sophisticated understanding of material science. Some tools show evidence of repeated resharpening and maintenance, indicating they were valued possessions passed down through generations. The Denisovan contribution to modern human genetics extends beyond high-altitude adaptations. Recent studies have identified Denisovan genetic variants that may have enhanced immune system function, improved cold tolerance, and even influenced aspects of brain development. These genetic gifts from our ancient relatives continue to provide advantages to their modern descendants, demonstrating the lasting impact of these long-extinct populations. Environmental reconstruction of Denisovan habitats reveals a world of dramatic beauty and harsh challenges. The Altai Mountains during their occupation were home to woolly mammoths, cave bears, and other megafauna that provided both opportunities and dangers. The Denisovans learned to navigate this complex ecosystem, developing hunting strategies that allowed them to take advantage of seasonal migrations while avoiding the most dangerous predators. Perhaps most remarkably, the Denisovans represent our closest approach to understanding what it means to be human in the broadest sense. They shared our capacity for culture, tool use, symbolic thinking, and adaptation to new environments. Yet they were genetically distinct enough to be considered a separate species or subspecies. Their story reminds us that humanity has always been diverse, adaptive, and capable of remarkable achievements, even in the face of seemingly impossible challenges. The legacy of the Denisovans lives on not just in the DNA of modern populations, but in the expanded understanding they have given us of human potential. They showed that early humans were capable of conquering environments previously thought uninhabitable, developing sophisticated technologies with limited resources and maintaining complex cultures over tens of thousands of years. Their ghost presence in our genomes serves as a reminder that we are all carriers of ancient wisdom, biological adaptations earned through countless generations of survival and innovation in a world far harsher than the one we know today. The relationship between Neanderthals and modern humans was far more complex than mere territorial disputes or competition for resources. Archaeological evidence reveals patterns of interaction that fundamentally challenge our understanding of how different human species coexisted. When we examine sites across Europe and Western Asia, we find compelling evidence that these encounters shaped not just genetic lineages, but entire technological and cultural traditions that would define human civilization. Consider the extraordinary discovery at Vindiga Cave in Croatia, where layers of sediment tell a story spanning tens of thousands of years. Here, archaeologists uncovered tools that blur the lines between Neanderthal and modern human craftsmanship. The stone implements show a gradual transition in technique, suggesting not conquest or replacement, but sustained contact and knowledge exchange. These weren't isolated incidents of chance encounters between wandering groups. The archaeological record indicates deliberate, repeated interactions that lasted for millennia. The genetic evidence tells an even more remarkable story. When scientists first decoded Neanderthal DNA, they discovered something extraordinary embedded within our own genetic code. Non-African populations carry between 1 and 4% Neanderthal DNA, but this genetic legacy isn't randomly distributed. Specific genes related to immune function, skin pigmentation, and cold adaptation appear at much higher frequencies, suggesting that interbreeding wasn't merely occasional but strategically advantageous for survival in harsh northern climate. These genetic signatures reveal patterns of interaction that extended far beyond brief encounters. Analysis of ancient DNA shows that hybridization events occurred multiple times across different regions and time periods. In the Altai Mountains, genetic analysis reveals that some Neanderthal populations carried modern human DNA, indicating bidirectional gene flow. This wasn't a one-way assimilation of Neanderthals into modern human populations, but a complex web of genetic exchange that enriched both lineages. The technological implications of these interactions are equally fascinating. At sites like Châtel-Perronien in France, we find evidence of what archaeologists call the Châtel-Perronien industry, a unique tool tradition that combines Neanderthal techniques with innovations typically associated with modern humans. These hybrid technologies suggest that knowledge transfer wasn't limited to genetic material, but extended to sophisticated manufacturing techniques, hunting strategies, and possibly even symbolic practices. Recent discoveries have revealed that Neanderthals possessed far more advanced capabilities than previously imagined. At Bruniquel Cave in France, researchers found mysterious circular structures built from broken stalagmites, arranged in precise patterns and dating to 176,000 years ago. These constructions required planning, cooperation, and possibly symbolic thinking, demonstrating cognitive abilities that parallel those of early modern humans. The discovery forces us to reconsider the nature of Neanderthal intelligence and their capacity for complex social organization. The evidence for symbolic behavior among Neanderthals continues to accumulate. Eagle talons found at Krapina in Croatia show deliberate modification, suggesting their use as jewelry or symbolic objects. Cave paintings in Spain, dating to over 65,000 years ago, were created by Neanderthals before modern humans arrived in the region. These discoveries indicate that the capacity for symbolic thought and artistic expression wasn't unique to our species, but represented a shared heritage of human cognitive evolution. Language presents another fascinating dimension of Neanderthal-modern human interaction. Analysis of Neanderthal skulls reveals that they possessed the FOXP2 gene associated with language development in modern humans. Their hyoid bones, crucial for speech production, show remarkable similarity to our own. While we cannot know the exact nature of Neanderthal communication, the anatomical evidence suggests they possessed the biological foundations for complex vocal communication. If Neanderthals could speak, then interactions with modern humans would have involved not just gestures and demonstrations, but potentially sophisticated verbal exchanges of knowledge, stories, and cultural practices. The geographic patterns of interaction reveal strategic advantages that both species gained from contact. In regions where resources were scarce or unpredictable, mixed groups might have shared knowledge about seasonal migrations, food sources, and environmental changes. Modern humans, newly arrived from Africa, would have benefited enormously from Neanderthal knowledge of European and Asian environments accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years. Neanderthals, in turn, might have gained access to new technologies, social strategies, or genetic advantages that modern humans brought with them. Climate data from the period reveals that these interactions occurred during some of the most challenging environmental conditions in human history. The late Pleistocene saw dramatic temperature fluctuations, expanding and contracting ice sheets, and radical changes in vegetation patterns. Under such conditions, cooperation and knowledge sharing would have provided crucial survival advantages. Mixed groups might have been more resilient to environmental shocks, combining Neanderthal cold adaptations with modern human innovations in tool technology and social organization. The archaeological record suggests that some interactions were competitive rather than cooperative. At sites like Saint-Césaire in France, we find evidence of possible violence between groups, including fractured skulls and defensive wounds. However, even competitive interactions would have driven technological and social innovations as each group sought advantages over rivals. The pressure of competition might have accelerated the development of new hunting techniques, defensive strategies, and social alliances. Trade networks provide another window into the complexity of these relationships. Obsidian tools found hundreds of kilometers from their source materials indicate extensive trade networks that likely included both Neanderthal and modern human populations. Shell ornaments from Mediterranean sources appear at inland sites across Europe, suggesting that valuable materials moved through complex exchange systems that transcended species boundaries. These trade relationships would have required sophisticated communication, trust, and mutual benefit. The demographic patterns revealed by genetic analysis suggest that interbreeding wasn't random but followed specific social patterns. The X chromosome shows less Neanderthal introgression than autosomes, indicating that male Neanderthals and female modern humans produced more viable offspring than the reverse pairing. This pattern suggests specific social dynamics and mating preferences that shaped the genetic legacy we carry today. Understanding these patterns provides insights into the social structures and cultural practices of both species. Recent advances in ancient protein analysis have revealed additional dimensions of interaction. Dental calculus from Neanderthal teeth shows evidence of plant processing techniques and possibly even medicinal plant use that parallels practices among early modern humans. These similarities might reflect independent innovation or knowledge transfer between groups. The ability to identify specific plants and processing techniques in ancient remains opens new avenues for understanding how cultural knowledge spread between populations. The extinction of Neanderthals around 40,000 years ago coincides with the period of most intensive interaction with modern humans. Rather than sudden replacement, the evidence suggests a gradual process of genetic and cultural assimilation. Some Neanderthal populations may have been absorbed into modern human groups through interbreeding, while others faced extinction due to climate change, resource competition, or demographic pressures. The process was likely complex and varied significantly across different regions and time periods. Modern genomic studies continue to reveal new aspects of this ancient relationship. Researchers have identified specific Neanderthal gene variants that influence everything from immune responses to circadian rhythms in contemporary populations. Some variants appear to provide advantages in certain environments, while others may contribute to modern health challenges. Understanding these genetic legacies helps us appreciate how ancient interactions continue to influence human biology today. The implications extend beyond academic interest to fundamental questions about human identity and diversity. The discovery that all non-African populations carry Neanderthal DNA challenges traditional concepts of species, boundaries, and human uniqueness. We are not the products of a single evolutionary lineage, but the result of complex interactions between multiple human species. This realization transforms our understanding of human evolution from a linear progression to a complex network of relationships, exchanges, and adaptations. Archaeological evidence suggests that the final Neanderthal populations may have persisted in refugia like Gibraltar and the Iberian Peninsula, maintaining contact with modern human groups even as their overall populations declined. These last interactions might have been crucial in preserving certain technological traditions and genetic variants that would prove advantageous for later human populations. The end of the Neanderthals wasn't simply extinction, but transformation through integration with the expanding modern human population. The story of Neanderthal-modern human interaction represents one of the most significant episodes in human evolutionary history. It demonstrates that our species' success wasn't achieved through isolation or dominance over other human lineages, but through complex relationships that included cooperation, competition, interbreeding, and cultural exchange. The legacy of these ancient encounters lives on in our genes, our technologies, and our understanding of what it means to be human. As we continue to uncover new evidence from archaeological sites and ancient DNA, the story becomes ever richer and more complex, revealing depths of interaction that previous generations of researchers could never have imagined. The mysteries of our ancient past continue to unfold before our eyes, and perhaps nowhere is this more evident than in the traces of human interaction that lie buried beneath the earth. Each archaeological discovery, each genetic breakthrough, each carefully analyzed fossil fragment adds another piece to the intricate puzzle of who we are and where we came from. The story we've uncovered through this exploration reveals something profound about the nature of human existence itself. When we look at the evidence scattered across continents and preserved in our very DNA, we see that the human story has never been one of isolation or simple linear progression. Instead, it's a complex tapestry woven from countless encounters, exchanges, and adaptations that shaped not just our biology, but our capacity for innovation, creativity, and survival. The Neanderthals, Denisovans, and early modern humans didn't simply coexist in parallel worlds. They shared knowledge, traded resources, formed relationships, and left lasting imprints on each other's genetic and cultural legacies. This interconnectedness challenges many of our preconceptions about prehistoric life. We often imagine our ancestors living in small, isolated groups, struggling merely to survive in a harsh and unforgiving world. But the archaeological record tells a different story entirely. It reveals sophisticated social networks, complex trading relationships, and evidence of cooperation that spanned vast distances. Stone tools found hundreds of miles from their source materials. Similar artistic techniques appearing across different regions and genetic signatures that speak of regular contact between groups all point to a prehistoric world that was far more connected than we might have imagined. The implications of these discoveries extend far beyond academic curiosity. Understanding how our ancestors navigated diversity, adapted to changing environments, and maintained social cohesion in the face of challenges offers valuable insights for our modern world. The genetic contributions from Neanderthals and Denisovans that helped early humans adapt to new environments, resist diseases, and thrive in extreme conditions demonstrate the power of diversity as a survival strategy. These ancient genetic gifts continue to influence human health and adaptation today, reminding us that our strength has always come from our connections to others. Perhaps most remarkably, the evidence suggests that the extinction of Neanderthals and Denisovans wasn't simply a matter of one species outcompeting another. Instead, it appears to have been a complex process involving climate change, environmental pressures, and, perhaps most importantly, genetic and cultural integration. Rather than disappearing completely, these ancient human species became part of us, their DNA, innovations, and cultural practices absorbed into the growing tapestry of human civilization. As we stand at the threshold of new discoveries, with advancing technologies revealing ever more details about our ancient past, we're reminded that the human story is still being written. Every new fossil site, every genetic analysis, every archaeological expedition has the potential to reshape our understanding of human evolution and interaction. The caves of Europe continue to yield new insights into Neanderthal behavior and cognition. The high plateaus of Asia may still hold secrets about Denisovan civilization. And somewhere, buried beneath layers of sediment and time, lie the remains of encounters we haven't yet discovered, interactions that will further illuminate the complex web of relationships that gave rise to modern humanity. The legacy of these ancient interactions lives on in ways both visible and hidden. It's written in the structure of our immune systems, shaped by genetic adaptations that helped our ancestors survive ancient plagues and environmental challenges. It's reflected in our capacity for innovation and problem-solving, traits that may have been enhanced through the mixing of different human lineages, and it's embedded in our fundamental nature as social beings, capable of forming complex relationships, sharing knowledge, and adapting to change through cooperation rather than competition alone. As we face the challenges of our modern world, the lessons from our ancient past become increasingly relevant. Climate change, resource scarcity, and the need for cooperation across diverse populations are challenges that our ancestors faced and overcame through innovation, adaptation, and mutual support. The story of human evolution isn't just about survival of the fittest in the narrow sense, but about the power of connection, cooperation, and the sharing of knowledge and resources across groups and generations. The journey through our prehistoric past ultimately brings us full circle to a deeper understanding of ourselves. We are the inheritors of a legacy that spans hundreds of thousands of years, shaped by countless encounters between different human groups who chose cooperation over conflict, integration over isolation. In recognizing this heritage, we gain not just knowledge about where we came from, but wisdom about where we might go. The same capacity for adaptation, innovation, and cooperation that allowed our ancestors to thrive in the face of enormous challenges remains with us today, encoded not just in our genes, but in our fundamental nature as human beings. The story of how cavemen lived with other species of humans isn't just ancient history. It's the foundation of who we are and who we can become.